Welcome to the Expert Talks by Kalkine TV. I'm Sage. Today's guest is Ms. Kirstin Coughtrie, the founder, CLO at Gaia Learning and TeachSDGs Ambassador. In celebration of International Education Day, we're gaining the insights of those who tirelessly dedicate their life to education and raising the awareness of the community. So please keep watching to the end to find out more. So bringing you live today, we have Ms. Kirstin Coughtrie, the founder and CLO at Gaia Learning. Welcome to the show, Kirstin.
Hi, Sage. Thank you very much for having me. You pronounced my surname perfectly, but it's Gaia Learning is the name of our company.
Gaia Learning. Thank you. Okay. Well, Kirstin, I'm glad I at least got the name right. And I'm so glad to have you with us today. We have to make the most of our time together, so let's dive straight into the discussion to understand a little bit more about Gaia Learning. So you offer personalised learning on demand for ambitious families looking for flexible and bespoke education. Could we find out a bit more about your services?
Yes, of course. It actually started before the pandemic, but during our first school closures in the UK is where our services really took off. Lots of families having to continue to work flexibly through various lockdowns, and lots of families as well who had their kids in private education with job uncertainty, still wanting that personalised approach for their children, but needing something a bit more affordable. So that's when it sort of took off, and we did classes around the Sustainable Development Goals, keeping kids active and learning and busy and not bothering their parents, while everybody was dealing with a lot of uncertainty through the pandemic and through lockdown. And it really gave us a real insight into how education could change, and just how much more agency young children could have as part of that change in their education. So really interested in what's happening in Australia at the moment around student visas and how the government there are emphasising the role of students.
They certainly are. There's been some great initiatives for internships, and it seems that there has been a focus on upskilling and some free education offers as well from the government. So we have been very lucky during the pandemic. So you're an ambassador for teaching at the United Nations Sustainable Development. How are you driving the goal apart from doing your work at Gaia Learning as well, of course? And how is your involvement with the United Nations on education helping to progress the goals, please?
So during, as I said, that period where we were doing these kind of homeschool classes and helping parents manage their workload in the pandemic, this time last year, I was recognised as an ambassador for teaching the Sustainable Development Goals, and we were able to kind of collaborate in a global classroom with kids from all over the world. And it was just so inspiring to see kids coming up with solutions to the real big problems that we face in the world, not just what's going on in Australia at the moment, but I think governments everywhere are having to find joined up solutions. And actually kids are the ones that have got those really great ideas in how we can solve those problems. So I think with migration and disease and education, they're just some of the problems that really do need collaboration and involvement from young people. And I think that the government should certainly make it easier for young people to come onshore to be involved in that process. I'm a little bit biased. I'm joining you today, obviously, from the UK, but I started my career in an internet events media company in Sydney on a temporary visa myself. And I certainly wouldn't be 15 years later the CEO of a startup company myself if I hadn't have been given that opportunity at a really exciting and important point in my life. So I really think that it is so important to focus on visas for young people to come into countries. I mean, Australia really does have that geographical isolation that is a disadvantage to it in competing with talent and students from all over the world. And I think reducing barriers to entry is really, really important.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for sharing your own personal story there. That's very inspiring. And well, work seems to be evolving to become more remote. You can work for an organisation wherever you are now, as long as you have a computer and internet these days. And it seems that, you know, the world that it is now has evolved so much as well that it's almost hard to prepare for the future because we don't know what it holds. So I think enhancing children's imaginations, and by travelling you can gain so much more of this life experience, I guess, is what you're saying from your own experience. What are you noticing from the students' reactions after understanding that there is a whole different world out there that they could connect with?
I think it's not just the students. I mean, young kids are so good at kind of self-directing their learning and learning through YouTube and TikTok and all of these places that adults and teachers don't really have a hold on anymore. What I'm keen to do with Gaia Learning is actually create a place for teachers and educators to be able to be really innovative with the profession of teaching. It is also an industry that is rapidly evolving. We set up just before the pandemic, as I said, the year before, but since COVID, it has been the most rapid acceleration of the shiniest, whizziest, most interactive ed tech tools out there, and it is a really, really exciting place to be involved with, but it also offers opportunities for real flexible work for teachers in a way that wasn't traditionally possible. So I actually left the classroom completely this time last year when my business grew enough to allow me to do that. But what I can see it offering is more opportunities for women. I'm a single mum of 3 kids, to earn good money in education, to be able to travel and to live in different places around the world. I do hope one day we will return to Australia. And I think that it's both work and education that we've seen changing. So I think what's interesting with government incentives, we've seen it in the UK a lot, this need or desire to kind of patch over and get back to normal and just invest in the things that kind of worked in the past. But I think a lot of that money, £630 dollars for a student is it's nice, but it's not really going to change anything major. Investing that money more into better synchronous and asynchronous education models where students can flexibly work remotely and onshore in Australia, so that they're not wasting their money while they're waiting for lockdowns or isolations or things to come to an end. There are new spaces where education is happening, and that's where the investment, I think, needs to happen. If governments aren't willing to do it, I think that's where businesses are need to put more focus.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your insider's perspective there, because sometimes we kind of take education for granted. But I think your perspective is fantastic in regards to keeping the teachers and the educators themselves excited and inspired by the work that they do, because it can be taxing at times, and their dedication, should not be sniffed at, because it's almost not a 24-hour job, but there is an emotional bond that you have to gain the maturity to deal with, that the students kind of get connected to you and expect things from you that sometimes go beyond the description of the role. So very, very interesting point there that you make, to keep the sprite for life in the educators as well. So we're coming to the end.
Oh, sorry, one more point on
Yes,
that is,
please.
I think that's where it's so exciting where technology can take us there, because when we use technology to reduce the mundane processes and jobs that teachers are having to do that really do kill the enthusiasm and stop that ability to be able to connect with students because of that extra work, we can replace that with technology. So get in our online ecosystem, all of that teacher workload is massively reduced with flipped classrooms and automated processes, so that our educators can just be left with the energy to connect with and inspire their students, and not have to deal with that. And because of that, we are always inundated with applications from educators to join our team. So I think this space is going to grow, and certainly it can in the tertiary education sector as well.
Yes, and it's so great that your mission is to help these people, because I'm sure their studies have been disrupted a lot from the lockdowns, etc. So very valued discussion we're having here. And as we reach the end, let's just find out a little bit more about how making learning more human and more flexible can be more valuable, in your opinion, through what you do at Gaia Learning.
So yeah, I was originally a geography teacher after I moved back to the UK, and so for me the purpose of education is very much to solve the issues that we're facing on our planet and on our Earth. If we can't teach kids how to do that, then I think that self-actualization and all of those other things are we're not going to get there. So I really advocate for using technology and the online space in the classroom to free families and young people to spend more time out in nature and playing and looking and being part of the world around them. I think there's a misconception of online learning that it is negative for kids, and that it's all one space. But if we completely reimagine what that could be in a personalized way, then I think that we can make learning more human, join up our solutions to problems, and really create something that's not just an emergency response to the pandemic, but real pandemic-proof, future-proof solutions to education. And I think that's where government money or investor money needs to be directed right now.
Yes, exactly. We're kind of selling the future to the learners, but also selling the fact that the learners need a future to the governments who fund these type of projects. Thank you so much, Kirstin. It's a great space for you to be in, a very exciting space, but also one that's kind of vulnerable, being at the front line there in the conditions that we're in. We do appreciate your insights today.
Thank you very much for having me. I think, the kids are the ones that are rewriting and creating these new spaces. So, we've got to let them in.
Exactly. There's a room for all of us to flourish. Thank you, Kirstin. Really do appreciate your time.
Thank you. Bye.
If you just joined us, we had a very interesting discussion from the education space, Miss Kirstin Coughtrie, founder at Gaia Learning. And you can watch the full interview on YouTube via Kalkine Media's channel, and keep watching for more of the expert talks, live market updates. And as we say, stay apprised and invest wise with Kalkine.